So at this point, literally 0 takeoffs from Iran's Air Force, and it's about to be a lot less. Can it get any less than 0? CENTCOM has released video of Iran's aircraft being struck on a whole new level. We saw F-4s, F-14s being struck last year. This time it looks like legacy Russian aircraft mainly being struck along with Shahed drones and other aircraft just essentially being vaporized. US B-2 bombers, F-15Es, and American and Israeli F-35s striking down the Iranian Air Force, obliterating the Iranian Air Force, and then backed up by cruise missiles from the Navy. They've completely dismantled Iran's Air Force, hitting bases like Tabriz, looks like destroying even more F-4 Phantoms, Su-22 attack aircraft, ground attack aircraft mainly are being vaporized, F-14 Tomcats, F-5 Tigers, and drone sites before anything can turn a wheel. Literally nothing is getting airborne at this point, and this is pure American air power dominance with air superiority being established in mere hours over all of Iran. And now that gives the ability of all these different aircraft, even A-10s, to go in and strike targets in Iran. This is pure unleashing of air superiority, stealth tech, precision strikes, the coalition turning Iran's obsolete fleet into rubble in days, showcasing why no adversary can stand against US resolve and technological edge. Iran hasn't even attempted a single man sortie. I know I've said it before, I'll say it again, because preemptive hits basically made it impossible, and their fighter pilots, if they have any more than 2 brain cells, they realize that any takeoff would be instant suicide. There are roughly 400 or so aging aircraft have been crippled by sanctions, and they lack modern capabilities, and now they're essentially completely neutered, giving coalition jets just total air control at this point. Every target of the IRGC and the new Ayatollah are a sitting duck. Stick around because we're going to break down why Iran's weak Air Force, the platforms, the tactics that crushed it, and why this weak Air Force tells us a lot. Because who are their partners? Russia and China. And some of the surface-to-air missile systems that are run by the Air Force obviously didn't fare too well in the initial strikes and volleys that basically obliterated Russian and Chinese systems. We'll talk about the strategic genius behind this suppression of taking down all these targets, and then we're going to jump to X and we're going to go through the actual strikes themselves, and I'll be reacting to those. But here's some of the breaking news that we're seeing right now. This is March 2nd, 2026, and we're seeing complete devastation on Iranian targets. I did a video earlier today. Unfortunately, 3 US F-15E Strike Eagles were shot down by Kuwaiti US surface-to-air missiles that is owned by Kuwait. Those are Patriot missiles. There's a full video on that, so check that out after this video. Here's some of the latest breaking headlines. US-Israel war, explosions heard near nuclear facilities and air bases in Iran's Isfahan. Obviously, all the different nuclear sites being targeted. Other headlines are saying the war in the Middle East widens as Israeli and US planes pound Iran and Tehran as proxies start to hit back across the region. As we've seen, pandemonium protests throughout many different countries. We're talking Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq. Basically, proxies are starting to go into action. War spirals in Middle East as explosions heard across region. US-Israeli strikes in Iran and reactions from around the world. US surges more forces towards the Middle East as the Pentagon warns that the Iran fight will take some time. And if you've been watching my channel for a little bit, you know that Iran is 2.5 times the size of Texas. It's a massive country, and the IRGC has their grubby little hands, their claws into a lot of the country, and they have to be rooted out with force. So that means an ATO, an air tasking order that rolls in with hundreds, if not thousands, of targets across the IRGC's headquarters, command and control. And now we're getting information that Iran is not backing down. And this is actually the Iran current foreign minister. Here's what he said just yesterday.
This is obvious that this assassination would make this confrontation more complicated and even more dangerous. It is absolutely unprecedented and a big violation of international law that a leader of another country is assassinated by foreign forces. So that would make this conflict or this war of aggression by Americans against us even more dangerous, more complicated. And, would add perhaps new aspects to that.
Okay, so there you go. Basically, he's trying to sound legitimate, right? He's trying to talk like, oh, we're just a legitimate country. We don't run proxies. We don't have ballistic missiles. We haven't launched Shahed drones into residential areas in Qatar. This dude obviously is a shill, right? He's under the thumb of whatever religious extremist is in power at the time. And you can just see in his eyes that he doesn't really want to be here. He's like, oh boy. He's like, I know my life expectancy isn't very long. I know my regime is completely illegitimate. And he was supposedly educated in the US. So this dude had some brain cells at one point, and obviously those have all gone away as he's been under the thumb of the religious extremists in Iran. But it looks like, from what he's saying, they're going to ramp everything up. And the IRGC is releasing propaganda as well, and they're saying that the absolute biggest offensive is yet to come against the United States. Of course they're going to say that. But here's what Reza Pahlavi had to say in return to this.
Sort of earth-shattering event in the sense that when people identify the entire monstrosity of a regime that is depicted ultimately by the chief monster of these monsters, when he's gone, the minute such a personality disappears, it's like elation. It was like, oh my God, it has finally occurred. Maybe this is it. This is our chance now.
So the Ayatollah Khamenei, who's been responsible recently for about 30,000 deaths of the Iranian people, basically creating death squads for his own people, willing to behead any of his own people that want to be free so that he stays in power, right? So Reza Pahlavi here reacting to that, I think that's a really great way to put it. It's like a slight sigh of relief, knowing that there is a ton of work ahead to root out the tentacles from the Ayatollah Khamenei. But at the end of the day, the fact that he's gone, it sends a very strong message to a lot of those other religious leaders that your lifespan isn't very long if you're a religious extremist in Iran right now. And the game has changed. So this makes me so happy for the Iranian people. This makes me so happy for Reza Pahlavi. Whether he comes in and helps with the transition, I mean, he already is. He's already giving help and support and hope to the Iranian people in Iran that are under the thumb of that evil dictator who is now evaporated. But there's another one that stepped right in, right? The new Ayatollah came in, and at this point, the life expectancy is probably very low for that dude. But I think Reza Pahlavi's words here really echo the hope for the brave Iranian people who want freedom. But back to Iran's Air Force and taking them down. In the 2026 conflict so far, Operation Epic Fury and Roaring Lion, B-2 bombers, F-15Es, F-35s from Israeli Air Forces, US Air Forces, cruise missiles destroyed the Air Force of Iran. They destroyed F-4 Phantoms, S-22 attack jets, F-14 Tomcats, and F-5s. Potentially some of those F-5s prior to the Iranian Revolution in 1979 were flown by Reza Pahlavi, but I'm sure he'll be okay when he walks back into Iran with his head held high, helping transition Iran into a place where people can thrive once again. Plus, Shahed 136 drone facilities and storage sites were all struck down recently by the US Air Force and the US Navy, along with Israel. The campaign prioritized early suppression of Iran's air capabilities, preventing any meaningful sorties and slashing the operational fleet by significant margins, potentially having the combat-ready aircraft in the opening hours of the conflict itself. And over the last 24 hours, the heat has really been taken to the Iranian Air Force. This reflects superior US stealth technology and intelligence, ensuring Iranian assets stayed grounded and neutralized and neutered, whichever one of those you want to use. Neutralized and neutered at this point. Iran's Air Force, the IRIAF, fields an estimated 400 aircraft, well, before these strikes, 400 aircraft, but they're mostly aging relics with limited readiness. Decades of sanctions mean no spare parts, poor maintenance, no modern upgrades. About 40 F-14 variants, dozens of F-4s, F-4 Tigers, 30 MiG-29 Fulcrums, Su-22 and Su-24 legacy Russian aircraft, and then F-5 based aircraft called the Hesa Kausar. There's no 4th or 5th gen fighters to speak of. There were rumors prior to the Iran war that they would get Su-35s from Russia. But who knows? One day we could see F-16s sitting on the tarmac of a free Iran after they partner with the US and Israel and become an ally of the US and Israel. But right now, air superiority is established across the whole country, but you have to keep it because there are certain surface-to-air missile systems that are still alive and well. They'll pop out from a hiding spot and then launch a missile, a SAM. So you have to be very careful, and maintaining air superiority is likely the #1 job right now of the F-16CJ. And the F-16CJ is highly capable. I'll do a full video on how they likely were some of the first ones to go in and strike down the IADs, the integrated air defense systems in Iran. And then you've got the EA-18G Growler. The EA-18G Growler is doing work every single day, jamming everything it can, basically melting the face off of any of these Iranian surface-to-air missile radars that are still alive. And then you've got the F-15E, highly capable aircraft. The thing I really love about that is you can go in as the fighter pilot in the front with your air-to-air radar scanning and looking for any air-to-air threats, any Shahed drones, ballistic missiles, and then you've got a weapons systems officer in the back who can be using the targeting pod to scan for any surface-to-air radars, surface-to-air missiles, and the way that that jet talks to all the different systems in the area with 2 people being able to interpret the data is huge. And at this point, those F-15E pilots are sitting there waiting because, again, as the fighter pilot in the front of the F-15E, you're typically looking at the radar for any air-to-air threats. They know that they are ready to go and strike down any F-4s or F-14s that take off, but Iranian fighter pilots also know that it's suicidal to go up against an F-15E Strike Eagle, F-16, F-18, or F-35 at this point. The jaw droppers to take down the Iranian Air Force, B-2s, F-15Es, and F-35s, also Israeli and U.S. cruise missiles, obliterated Iran's Air Force on the ground. They destroyed those different jets that we've seen basically having the Iranian Air Force from 400 to what is estimated to be about 200 right now. And those strikes have prevented any air threat, but also, let's see what else prevented those air threats. F-22s and F-35s up above, and the Iranian fighter pilots hopefully having more than 2 brain cells. I mean, if a fighter pilot took off from Iran right now, they would basically be the reason why deodorant has instructions on it. They would not be very smart, is what I'm getting at. But American and Israeli forces hammered Iran with unmatched precision and capability to establish that doctrine of air superiority. And the doctrine of air superiority is the main thing you have to get right away. When you look at what happened in Venezuela, it was gotten in a few hours. Likely it was gotten in a few hours in Iran as well, but Iran is a much bigger country with more capability, so keeping it and making sure you keep it is a tougher problem. Also, Iran has the ability to saturate defenses, saturate radars by launching those Shahed drones to try to distract from your scope. They want to distract and make you think that friendlies are Shahed drones, like what we saw recently with some of the Kuwaiti systems being confused on what to target. But these 5th gen capabilities are the main go-to for air superiority right now. F-35 sensor fusion, talking to all the different jets and aircraft in the area, F-22s, making sure that all the different surface-to-air missile systems are shut down. So when B-2s, F-35s, and cruise missiles show up to destroy your entire air force, that's kind of the ultimate flex. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a humble brag. So let's move to the 4D chess situation. So right now, 4D chess is to deny the enemy any aircraft before they can even get in them and fight. US and Israel has framed this perfectly. Iran's Air Force is weakened already, and now it's completely being obliterated by B-2s, F-35s, F-15Es, and cruise missiles to neutralize it on the ground. What that does is it just takes one more thing off the board, right? A dogfight or a beyond visual range engagement wouldn't be hard for the US or Israel. However, it just takes one more thing off the board. So now you can focus on drones, strike down the drone swarms, and then strike down the targets. Because right now, it's all about striking the IRGC targets and obliterating the IRGC. And the Air Force was just one level of that. The Navy has been leveled as well in Iran, and I'll do a full video on that likely tomorrow. So the edge for the US and Israel, stealth, precision, coalition intel. This makes this decisive and necessary to end the threat for good. So we're not looking at a prolonged war here. As we can see, the Department of War is saying that is not the goal. And I love that. Having been in the global war on terror myself, seeing decades-long wars stretch out, that is not the goal here. The difference is the Persian people are ready to stand up and take their country back. So I am so excited for the Persian people, the Iranians that are here in America, the Iranians in Iran that just want freedom. They just want the chance to live a good life. And now they have the opportunity to do that as we're seeing them rise up and take over their government. What do you think? Where do you think we go from here? What sites do you think we'll see struck in the next few weeks? And how long before you think the Iranian people will be able to take over their government and there will be a transitional party for a new government taking place of these new Ayatollahs that are trying to step in and fill the shoes of Ayatollah Khamenei? Let me know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Go and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. And if you want to see me do a live, I'm doing them pretty much every day right now covering the Iran war. Click the link in the description, join the Max Ready Room, become a VIP, and I do priority responses to the Max Ready Room Live VIP members. So definitely click that link and become a member. I'll see you in the next video that pops up right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.